rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please remember to silence your phones. We're here for a special session tonight to talk about transfers and additionals, reductions. The first item up is with the sheriff. Sheriff, if you want to come up.
I have two things. They are transfers, I guess technically deemed just moving some money around what we're doing. The first would be in the jail and the road overtime with the stuff going on at the pond and the murder that we had. We called everybody out the night of the murder. That's 9 guys. Wason was on vacation, but 9 guys who were out for a 24-hour period. That added up pretty quickly. The pond, not much overtime was spent out there at all. Just a little bit here and there. Most of that was all done with guys taking comp time, and that's going to be, they're not going to take it till after the first of the year, so, and that'll be us filling in spots. But the request is going to be to move $8,000 from the jail budget, jail overtime, to the road overtime.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the reduction of appropriation request in the amount of $8,000. We have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you. Second thing we have is we're requesting $20,000 from the misdemeanor fund to be placed into jail medical, and this is just to carry us through to the end of the year. Obviously, don't have to get into specifics on, we have a lot of inmates, some specific things happen medically that cost us to have a little extra here. That's what the misdemeanors fund is for, is to fund things within the jail. Don't see any other needs that we're going to have, so taking $20,000 from the misdemeanor fund should fund the medical program until the end of the year.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the additional appropriation request in the amount of $20,000. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up is our coroner. Hello.
Hello. Thank you all for seeing me. I am actually requesting an addition of $18,000 for the purpose of autopsies. We are currently $12,000 behind right now. That's what I owe out, and I'm asking for about $6,000 more for the end of the year. Hopefully we don't have to ask for any more.
Business has been too good in your department for a long time.
Unfortunately, it has. A lot of young deaths,
You have a
30s,
total,
40s.
you have a total for the year?
A total on autopsies or a total on deaths?
Both, actually.
We have actually autopsied between 50 to 75% of our cases. Unfortunately, it's because of the age. A lot of children, babies, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, a couple of 50-year-olds, and of course a few natural. But primarily it's been overdoses and unfortunately heart attacks, young, very young. Of course, we can't prove these are heart attacks without having, you know, somebody's 40 years old, they've never had any medical treatment because they've never had any reason to. Obviously, they've had reason to, they just didn't know that they had reason to because they're dying of massive heart attacks. And without an autopsy, we couldn't prove that, so.
How many overdoses?
I don't have an exact number, I'm sorry, but it is actually on the rise again, calmed down for a few months at the beginning of the year, but now it's starting to climb again, unfortunately.
So moved.
Is there a second? We have a motion to approve the additional appropriation request for the coroner's office in the amount of $20,000. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you for sending me.
Next up, commissioners.
Our additional appropriation is from the Land Acquisition Fund request. We are entering into a agreement with Connets on the purchase of the old dollar store building. The commissioners feel that it's necessary to use our land acquisition funds because even though we do have a priority that we need to look at creating a women's work release center and also women's DOC block. We feel that's a priority. However, we want to have the option of a feasibility study of all of our buildings, our two primary buildings around the jail, to make sure that we get the best building, use the best building for both of those facilities, and the cheapest to the taxpayer down the road to use. Earlier in the year, we talked with some engineers. They looked at the dollar store for us. They looked at the annex for us. And just giving us some ideas of what we could do and what we couldn't do. They're concerned that the costs that would be involved in the dollar store if we wanted to put secured DOC in that building. So the commissioners are trying to be very cautious on what building we promise to what departments. And we feel that even though there is community corrections money out there and willing to pay for this building, we feel that the commissioners need to maintain the control as an executive body of what we use our county-owned buildings for, and that we are more than willing to invite them to pay for all the renovation costs of either building for that use. But I want to be very clear that it is our first priority to address the Women's Work Release Center and getting the women's DOC block moved out of the current jail, which the sheriff feels that will be a big, big help in curbing our overcrowding problems. So that is the commissioner's first priority. Regardless of what buildings we use, we just want to make sure that we use the right buildings for the right use for the taxpayers. So that's why we want to use the land acquisition fund.
I have a question, maybe Joey, you can help answer this. How many inmates can the annex building hold right now? It was used as a jail at one time, right?
Correct. I have no idea.
There were, the way it was, when it was still a complete jail, there were, I think maximum capacity was like 70, something like that.
I was thinking in the neighborhood of 70 to 75.
The reason I ask is because somebody brought that up as a suggestion of utilizing that space for your retention and your work release and using the new building, the Dollar General, as maybe office space for the annex, which made sense to me.
For the probation. And that was the option that those are basically the options that we're looking at is those two buildings primarily. What best fits for those two buildings?
How far out of whack is the annex from being compliant or up to standards, or, I mean, obviously it's probably closer than the Dollar General.
And that was my discussion with the architects, a particular architectural firm that actually did our jail. Elevatus is now, was Schenkel, or Schultz.
Yeah,
They were the company that designed our current jail. And I posed the question, you know, well, seeing that it was a DOC facility in the first place, I thought maybe it might be cheaper to bring it back to DOC compliance than a block building. Well, they had a tendency to agree, but they would not say without doing a study on both buildings. He felt that the dollar store just being a general block building, it would be very difficult and very costly for us to make that secure. If we just wanted it for community corrections work release, that's unsecured facility and that's a totally different story. But if we're looking at the need for DOC, then it may be cheaper for us to tear that building down and start over, is what he was saying. And I just don't, if community corrections has the funding to buy the building, then they've got the funding to renovate the building. So I just don't want the executive body to lose control of what we do with our buildings. And this will obligate us to utilize that building.
and you're just saying, because I want to make it clear for everybody watching that's here, you understand it will still be titled in the commissioner's name. That's not your point of contention. Your point of contention is if the monies come from the Department of Corrections or the CTV fund, that can only be used for the women's work release and retention. And that's it. And you don't want to be pigeonholed into that.
Right.
But you understand it's still titled in the
Yeah,
commissioner's
yeah.
name. So
Yes.
you're not questioning that.
No.
You're just questioning the future use of it.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And, you know, had somebody not asked me the question a couple days ago about the annex building being used, you know, as possible holding area for work release and for women inmates, or female inmates, I probably never would have thought of that.
Mhm.
So it does change my perspective quite a bit.
I don't understand though, you haven't made a determination as to which building you want for the jail annex?
No, we haven't. Because we didn't want to spend any more money until we didn't want to spend any money until we knew whether we had a building to choose from.
I think the priority is probably to secure the property and the land. And-
That's been the priority, is to secure that property. There's no reason to spend money on converting the jail or the annex back to DOC if we don't have another building for probation to go to. We don't have the building space to do it until we acquire more space.
It does make sense to me.
I tend to agree with Gary. I think first things first, this has been something that's been under discussion for several years, and just, you know, all sorts of legalities have held things up. But I think that the priority is to obtain the building and the ground, and then move forward, whether, you know, with the help of community corrections or whatever. But then you at least can, since you've got the building, you can study it. I think it's pretty silly to spend money studying something that someone else could buy out from under you tomorrow.
Well, and that's true. I mean, I wouldn't spend taxpayers' money on somebody else's property to research somebody else's property. I just wouldn't do that. I wouldn't be in favor of that at all. And we can't, there's no sense in running feasibility studies or cost estimates on any of our existing buildings changing their use, because we don't have the spare space to do anything with. I mean, we could put DOC women's in the old jail to tomorrow. But what are you gonna do with probation? We don't have any place to go with them. So,
I mean,
to me, there was no reason to be spending money on trying to create any kind of a study when we didn't have the extra space until we acquired the building.
The common sense approach would be to if you were going to do that, the way that any company that I've worked for, architecture, engineering, would be to repurpose the Dollar General. If you're gonna make it into office space, get that ready, move your probation over there, then you could go ahead and renovate the annex to whatever standards it needs to be to hold inmates.
But you've got two problems here. Number one, you're depending on DOC monies for renovation that may not be there. And that's not a given. Number two, you're talking about the old jail, and I worked in it, and I know what it's like. And I've been out of the business for a few years now, but the existing jail has fire exits. They have this, that, and the other, okay, that the annex does not have. You're talking about some serious investment. Number one, you're gonna have to put an elevator in that works, okay? And when we looked at doing that for the annex, it was the estimate we got was 130 or 140,000 with the caveat of if they didn't find more problems when they got into the bottom of the shaft. You're talking about a sprinkler system, you're talking about this, that, and the other. You're talking probably more money to renovate that than what you would the Family Dollar store.
And Frank, I don't disagree with you, just like I don't disagree with the next guy down the road that says you're talking a lot of money to do something in the dollar store for DOC. Everybody's got their opinion. You've got your opinion, I've got mine. John Clark's got his opinion, but until we see some official or some educated opinions, I guess, on
And
DOC.
some numbers.
And some numbers, I don't, when you say, well, you're betting on the community corrections money to be there, well, where's it gonna be if it's?
You said that if they got enough money to purchase it, they got enough money to renovate it. That was your statement.
Well, okay, my question is, if the community corrections is gonna buy it, then I hope that they can renovate it.
And
Well,
Frank,
in
maybe I
discussions that
misunderstood, you said DOC instead of community corrections.
That's all the money's come from DOC.
Well,
In
all the
discussions
money.
that Dale and I had with them, they're,
I'm sorry.
in the discussions that Dale and I had with them last week, Dale?
Tuesday of this week, or, no, Tuesday of last week.
Okay. We talked to them and they have no intention of rehabbing it. That wasn't in their plan, and they fully intended for the sheriff to be the one that was over it, managing it. You owning it, but him, because he is dealing with inmates, he would outrank her, of course, and he would be responsible for that. And she would, let him run his thing. Diana, can that CTB money be used for renovation?
It could be used for renovation. There's not enough in that fund to renovate that building.
I think that's what she said.
Well, I'm not a project engineer. But the biggest problem we have with the space that the probation department occupies is it's been neglected too many years. It's become run down and it needs to be made habitable again. But if we were going to use that area for DOC purposes, as far as bringing that building back up to code and secure for that purpose, the fact that it is a multi-level facility, I would imagine would add quite a bit to the cost. The elevator being one issue. The ideal situation, as far as the Dollar General store is concerned, is it's one flat slab. Everything's, there's no steps or anything. And that would make it more compatible for either use, either office space or anything else. The discussion that Mike and I had with the Community Corrections Director last week, I was led to believe that as long as part of that facility was used by Community Corrections to house work release inmates, female work release inmates, it could be shared with the Sheriff's Department or the county jail, partially staffed by Community Corrections and partially staffed by the Sheriff's Department. Staffing is also an issue in this whole equation, but all of it is intended to avoid the need, as long as we can, to eliminate the need for adding on to or doing anything to our existing jail for reasons that we've all discussed before. The only issue we've got here, I think everyone agrees we need to acquire the building. The only issue we have is what's the smart way to fund it?
And I think that we're getting out in front of our ski tips here on this, thinking too far down the road.
I think so too. I think we have one purpose
When
here.
the one purpose is to acquire the building.
Right.
And we can't, we're dealing with hypotheticals here of multi-story building over there. Can it be renovated? Can it not? Can the Dollar General store be rehab, made into a jail? Does it have to be leveled and start over? I mean, this is my line of business, what I deal with, architects, engineers, and civil people all day long. I've worked for architectural firms. And one of the things you're gonna do first is acquire the land. Then you're gonna come up with your schematic plan and figure out what you're gonna do, how you're gonna purpose that building, how you're gonna fund it, where you're gonna fund it from. And as I listen to what Gary's saying and think into what, somebody's asked me about repurposing that building, it really does make sense to not pigeonhole them in by using the CTV money, the community corrections money, where their only purpose that they can use it for, according to that, is for women's work release or inmates.
Well, I'll respectfully disagree with you. If I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna use your money if that's possible rather than my own.
But where you only can, if I tell you can only do one thing with that money,
If it fits my business need,
well, that's just it.
fine.
We don't know what the business needs are yet.
This $110,000 we're talking about taking out of this fund may, no one knows, that may be required for our part for renovation in the future. We can purchase a building for nothing out of our funds and keep that.
Land acquisition fund cannot be used for renovations. It can only be used for purchasing properties.
It was a dedicated fund, and what was dedicated can be undedicated.
I don't think so.
We can actually repurpose it. Council can actually repurpose it. We designate it, so.
I would like, yeah, I'd like to know, could that fund be changed? I'm looking at Jane, because she.
I'm looking at Ann. I don't know.
I would have to look at how it was dedicated, but
Diana, do you know?
I think, oh, I don't know on the county budget.
The commissioners created that fund
Yeah.
for the purpose of buying property. When I was commissioner before, we did that. It was ground that the county had sold, property that we had sold, and we dedicated that fund to buy future needs for the county's properties. Exactly what this was, it was,
Set aside for.
it was set aside for exactly this.
How much money is in that fund?
$217,000.
$217,000, yeah.
I move that we approve the additional appropriation request for the purchase of the land. for from the Dollar General store.
We have a motion to approve the additional appropriation request in the amount of $110,550 from the Land Acquisition Fund for the Commissioners for the purpose of buying a Dollar General building. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we vote on this, I believe that if we allow community corrections to provide the funding to acquire this building, and then down the road, the commissioners decide not to use it for a correctional facility, we could repay the Community Corrections CTP fund out of one of our own funds and clear that matter up with them. But if we don't take this opportunity we have today to allow Community Corrections to buy that building, we won't get this opportunity again. This will be the only opportunity we'll have to allow Community Corrections to buy that building for us. And if our purposes for use of it change in the future, and I expect that building to sit idle with nothing being done with it for at least 2 or 3 years. If that happens, then we will be obligated to repay this Community Corrections CTP fund out of one of our own funds. But I wouldn't want to do that until it was necessary. Right now, today, it's not necessary.
I mean, I just was at our board meeting today, and I know I would like to have been able to have this conversation as a board today, Frank. I mean, to know if hypothetically, like later down the road, that the $110 that's set aside for this could go towards part of the renovations. But because I didn't know this, it wasn't brought up at our like advisory board meeting. I don't know, what do you think? I mean, is this the first you've heard of it? About the county wanting to buy it versus the corrections buying it?
No,
I've
it's just,
heard
the
of
county's
it
still
before.
buying it, period.
Right, but dollars, where it's coming from.
The county will own it. I mean, it will be like every pencil, every vehicle, every building. It will be in the name of the commissioners. However, Gary's right about one thing, okay? If DOC we obtain a grant from them for the purpose of that building, okay, it has to be for that purpose. Nevertheless, okay, we just spent several $1,000s last year on putting steel plate on the walls in the jail to make it secure. I am no expert in that, but in securing, and nobody here is, quite frankly. But you're passing up an opportunity for someone else to buy a building that can be repurposed.
Carrie, can I ask you a question?
Sure. I don't know if I can answer it.
You can. If we were to say, do that, use the CTB funds, with the understanding that if you decided, and the studies came back, the reports came back and said that does not make that feasible to use that building for that, we would then pay CTB back the $110,550 so that you could do with it what you want.
I don't believe those funds can come from the land acquisition fund, because we already own the building.
I think you're right, but I think there might be something where we could reword the land acquisition fund or the purpose of it in the meantime, so that you might be able to do that, or we got some other funds we could take something from.
We could repurpose land acquisitions, or we could use edit funds or CCD.
I'm just, as a compromise, I'm just saying, I understand you don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing, and I agree with you. And nobody's gonna know anything until these studies come back and they say, well, it makes more sense to do this, or it makes more sense to do that. But in the meantime, I think just to to make use of that money, but say, okay, if it comes back and it says it does not make sense, financial sense to use that building at all, and you'd be better off using it for office space, then we just pay that money back to CTV. And then you're free to do what you want with it. Because I'm kind of getting the vibe from the council that it may not go that way right now. And I'm trying to say, you know, there's a compromise, I think, out there. If we can do that, and we can, why don't we explore that possibility?
We have to do what we have funds to do it with.
I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I'm hearing what you're saying.
And we wanna use it.
I hear what he's saying too. And if I was standing in his shoes right now, I would be saying the same thing. But
Well, in 2 months you will be.
well, you never know about that. But our purpose right now is to protect county's funds as best we can, spend it
Right.
as smartly as possible.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say, and he's saying it better.
Yeah. Well, if you've got another source that's willing to pay for
But
it.
here's what, now, let me ask this question. Here's the question that hasn't come up yet. Do we have a signed agreement with Connect to buy this building? Why don't we have an agreement, a signed agreement with that?
He wants to wait on the funding
He
to be
was waiting to
put in
make sure that
place.
the funding would be put in place. I already spoken to him.
Because I believe he probably doesn't want to be locked in,
Right, and,
waiting on us to figure out how we're gonna fund it.
right, he felt like he's been waiting, and obviously I wasn't involved at all. He feels like he was promised something before and it fell through. Like I said, I don't know, so I'm working from just the last about 6 weeks I've been in conversation with him.
What was offered before?
I think it was just, I think there were 2 appraisals done, and then after that, you know, nothing happened.
We
but-
couldn't secure it at a value more than the appraised value. And that's-
Right,
The average of the
he's
two.
fine with the appraised value now,
Now,
but
yes.
he's
yeah.
waiting to make sure it's all approved. So I plan on, if it's approved, doing the purchase agreement this week.
Okay, well, I want to see us come to an agreement on how to do this tonight. And I hope that Ed Connett realizes that community corrections money is just as green as the county's money.
They're
I hope that doesn't make any difference to him where it comes from.
I don't
I
think
don't think he cares where it comes from.
I don't think that's his concern.
I think,
And thinking ahead there, Gary, too, when we go start depleting the land acquisitions fund, what are you gonna do if another square of ground on that same block comes available,
And I understand that.
you know? And there has been some recent discussion about that.
But I think 2 of those funds that you named would take care of those too. That need. The edit money and could take care of those needs as well.
Yeah.
And the, Jim Carrey.
So, back to what I said a few minutes ago, right now is the only opportunity we will have to take advantage of community corrections financial help in acquiring this building.
Dale, do you not believe that the Community Corrections Department could use these funds just as well and towards the same purpose to pay for that feasibility study or to pay for the architect's fees? Would that not be just as, I
The
mean,
building will
if
be,
they're
the
spending
building purchase will be our
$110,000,
cheapest part
let
of
us
this
get the
whole
building
project.
bought and let's move on.
it's,
This letter, Dale, Michelle's saying she'll put the money up, right?
Yes.
Instead of it coming out of that fund.
Yeah, it'll come out of the CPP fund.
I wanna get
This
the
is,
building.
this is the cheapest
But she's
investment.
also saying
This is the
it can
cheapest part
only
of the
be
cost.
used
Right, I
for
get
this
that.
purpose.
But I like what Dale said about getting it, and I also like what Mike said about if it doesn't work out, put in a clause so we can,
I think we need to give the commissioners some kind of good feelings here that we're not gonna lock them into
no.
that building can only be used for that. And I can appreciate what Gary's saying, because the studies come back and they say that building needs to be leveled, and just in my head, just thinking, yeah, it's gonna be cheaper to convert that to office space than it is gonna be corrections. But Frank brings up a very good point too about an elevator and fire escapes and all that stuff, and you deal with antiquated systems, and who knows where that will what rabbit trail we're gonna go down, rabbit hole we're gonna go down. So we gotta be very careful, and what Dale says is exactly right. We gotta be wise with the taxpayers' money, and this CTB money is there. They're offering up to use it, and I would say that we, at this time, we use it, but that we somehow we put some kind of provision in there, or some kind of wording in the motion, that if the commissioners decide against using that for that, and they wanna use the annex instead, that we know that we have to repay that CTB fund the $110,000.
My
Is that
point-
legal to obligate the council for that?
I don't know, probably not.
Well, part of my point here, Mike and Gary, is if we make a deal tonight to use CTP funds to purchase this building, that is a deal that later on we can back out of if we need to. If we use land acquisition fund, we cannot back out of that deal. That money is spent and gone forever. We can't go back then and ask community corrections to reimburse us for the $110,000 we spent out of land acquisitions. That scenario is
And
impossible.
I don't disagree with you, Dale, but my only concern is that $110,000 for that building purchase is the cheapest part of this whole project. It's pennies compared to what this project's gonna cost us. And
And I think we're all in agreement on that. I'm just trying to get you on board that if we vote to do this, that you're at least somewhat feel comfortable knowing that there's another way out of it. I don't want you to feel like you're locked into this. And that's what I don't want you coming away with. I understand and I respect what you're saying, I really do. But I'm also hearing what's being said over here too, and it makes sense on both sides. So now it's just coming down to, do we want to use taxpayer dollars, or do we want to use DOC money that's sitting that we can use? I'd rather use the DOC money right now to get it at least going, to at least acquire it, like you said, that's the smallest part of we're probably looking at dollar-wise. Get it purchased, then do your, figuring out what you want, then let's talk about it again in the future. If it comes back and says it's a no-go on using that for jail cells, then let's revisit that and get it corrected until you can do what you need to do. That's what I'm saying.
And the land acquisition, that money can grow interest while we're waiting. I mean,
yeah, the interest goes into county general.
but still could grow.
I agree with what you're saying, Mike. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I will make one comment that you talked about that money growing interest. If you invested the land acquisition fund money separately and did a fund investment of that, then any interest gained from that investment would go back in the land acquisition.
Which is not being done currently.
It's not being done.
I didn't think
It
so.
does go to county general unless you have a fund
Investment, yeah.
Okay, we got a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. The motion on the floor is to approve the additional appropriation request in the amount of $110,550 out of the land acquisition fund. So if you're voting in favor of this, you're voting in favor of taking the money from land acquisition. If you're voting against it, then obviously you're voting against it. And if you wanna come up with and amend it or something, we can do that too.
Well, before we go here, I want to make it clear to you, Gary, and Leota, and Mark, all three. Before we vote, I want you to understand, I'm not going to vote against buying the building, but I will vote against the motion to additional appropriation out of land acquisitions. If this motion dies, then I'm ready to go to work here and create a resolution of whatever needs to be to help you accept this gift money from community corrections.
Dale, would you like to amend my motion for me?
You have to amend it.
Yeah, I don't think
Or would you like for
Or you
me to
just wanna-
withdraw my
If
motion?
you want to withdraw it.
All right, I will withdraw the motion.
Okay, motion's been withdrawn.
I'd like to make a motion that we secure that
There's still a
property out of the
request for an additional
CTP fund
appropriation.
that's been offered by Community Corrections.
Guys, you still have to vote on the additional appropriation.
Oh, you're right. But we can amend it, yes. We can amend it then.
But you can't change the total intent.
What's that?
The intent is an additional appropriation request.
Yeah.
You've either got to vote it up or down. And then you can create
So no.
your resolution,
Okay.
like you said.
Okay.
So then we vote.
She withdrew her.
So what's the motion now?
You have to vote on that, though. She
Okay,
can
she
All
can't
withdraw
withdraw
that.
it.
Okay, all right.
Is that what you're saying?
So you can vote on this and vote yes or no, and if it's no, if you have a counter offer or resolution to it, we can make that.
How about a roll call vote?
That's what's gonna be handled.
I'm not as good a parliamentarian at this as I should be. We've never had a situation like this, Gary, as long as I've been here.
Ladies and gentlemen, I went through the courthouse project. And it is so important for there to be a board of 10 when you do a building project. And regardless of how this appropriation goes, it's still going to be a board of 10 that does this project. 7 council and 3 commissioners. And we intend to work with 7 council members on this project. And Dale could be very, very right, that it may be 2 years down the road before there's anything done to either one of the buildings that are out there. However, we've got to start someplace, and we've got to start tonight.
And that's what we're trying to figure out the best way to get there.
And that's what we're trying to do, is figure out the best way to do it.
And like Dale said,
However,
we've never
there's-
had this before.
There's an additional appropriation among the council. They either vote it up or vote it down, and then we move on and to the next step.
Well, I
Mr.
think,
President, I call for a vote.
okay, approve or disapprove?
Shirley's motion, according to the author, cannot be withdrawn, so it will be on her original motion to approve or disapprove the
Okay.
request from the land acquisition fund.
Okay, roll call vote then.
No, hold on. The original motion was to approve. So if you
Right.
say yes, you are approving it. If you say no, you are disapproving it. Okay. Councilman Jackson.
No.
Councilman Riker Payne.
No.
Councilwoman Wise.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dunn.
No.
Councilman Brockman.
No.
Councilman Strong.
No.
Councilman Winter.
No.
Okay, so the vote is 1 yes, 6 no's. Fails.
Now, does somebody want to make a motion to, or whatever, to,
And if I understand this right, the procedure for community corrections, transfer money from their fund toward the purchase of that building would be to submit a claim to the auditor's office for the approval of the county commissioners. And I think they can get a claim submitted by, would it be as early as tomorrow,
I
Dave?
can have it there by noon tomorrow.
Okay. Would the commissioners be willing to consider approving a claim from Community Corrections on their CTP fund for the amount to purchase this building?
Will that be a claim to transfer those funds to the general fund for us to write that check, or?
No, pay it directly from CPA.
Pay it directly?
Pay it directly.
I assume so.
And it would only take as much time as it took you to go through the claims process, but if you wanted to hurry it up, it'd probably be done within 48 hours. And it would be almost like just writing a check.
Well, we have a special session scheduled for Thursday at 3 o'clock. Jane, does that work for that claim? Can we sign that claim at that point in time? No, because it wasn't advertised to sign claims.
It wasn't advertised to sign claims, you're correct. It was advertised to make a decision on the purchase. I
Of
can
the
give you the
bill.
exact wording, yeah.
So we won't be able to act on that at that meeting,
Do you need to schedule another one?
on that claim, particular claim. But I guess my question would be to Ann then, if the claim is in the process and we make a motion and pass it on Thursday to purchase the building, is that going to be sufficient for?
Yes, I gave them the time frame based on not having special sessions, that I gave them the time frame of like the 1st of November. That
So-
meeting would probably be, so I think that'll be fine.
And then, if need be, we could have another special session to sign the claim later.
This is how I advertised it. Give me make a decision on the claim.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't, because it just said discuss and make decisions on the purchase of property.
I did advertise it as purpose of the meeting is to discuss and make decisions
Okay.
on the purchase of the property.
And I can have a purchase agreement. I don't know if I can get it signed by him, because but I'll have a purchase agreement for you guys to look at probably tomorrow.
Would the wording of your advertisement allow
Yes.
the
Yes.
approval of the claim or
I
not?
believe,
That's what she
it
just
will.
said.
It's very,
Yeah.
it's general. It says,
I'm sorry, I closed it back now.
discussions and decisions.
Yeah.
Was how she worded it,
To
so.
discuss and make decisions on the purpose of the property at 307 Central Avenue.
And I hope you
And
realize
also
that
the
we're not trying
acceptance
to be
of a bid for
difficult with you.
landscape.
We're on board
Oh, I-
with buying the building. We agree on that. It's just if we don't have to use the taxpayer money right now, and not have to do that, you know, it so happens to work out that that's used for jail, then great. If not, then we,
Diana, what's that fund? What fund's that fund?
It's CTP.
It's community transition.
What funds it?
Where's the money come from?
Where's the money come from?
Money comes from user fees. The money comes from, for the people that we have on the CTP program that come from prison to us, and then we have them on an ankle bracelet, we bill the Department of Corrections for that money, because they're technically still
Taxpayer
belong
money.
to the state.
Taxpayer money.
Well, taxpayer money that
Wow.
funds,
Taxpayer money
Department
comes
of
from the
Correction,
state.
however.
It still comes from the tree, the money tree.
But if we did not have CTP, you know, they're paying us back for keeping CTP prisoners, the same as they would be.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that we all knew
Well, and they
what
can come
tree
from,
it came from.
and they can come from anywhere. So like, we have people in our community corrections that aren't from local people.
Oh, I understand. It's state and federal money, but it's still tax dollars.
It's still taxpayers' money.
It's still taxpayers' money, don't pay for it.
Just about all of it's coming out of the pockets of those lawbreakers that are in the program, right?
No,
It's,
If it's
coming
fees
from
they're
the-
paying, and if it's fees that they're paying while in the program,
CTP do not pay.
That's not.
that's not.
It's
similar to the DOC reimbursement.
Yeah, it's DOC
But they're
reimbursement.
they're repaying us for having them on an ankle bracelet, for providing programs for them and providing case management.
I just wanted to
DOC
make
is
sure
paying
that
us.
it was understood that it's still taxpayer dollars.
Well, so do you think of it if whenever DOC pays for a ream of paper from Quill, then that's taxpayer dollars? After Quill gets it, is it still taxpayer dollars after Quill gets it for providing something in exchange for that money? I think that's kind of splitting hairs, but.
So
Okay.
anyway,
well, I got another question now for the commissioners and I guess the county attorney. Is there anything that the council needs or should do now in the form of a resolution or terms of language of support of any type that we need to add to help you with this or to
I would do a resolution.
I would do it. I would like to,
obligate ourselves to
As an individual commissioner, I would like to have a resolution from the council supporting this effort.
Oh, yeah.
Because as I said earlier, I want it to be a board of 10 that works on a building project.
I don't think anybody here is against purchasing or expanding
And no, I don't.
the jail annex whatsoever.
I don't think so either, Frank. I really don't. But I just think it would be good for everybody to be on board with a resolution. And
We don't have anything in writing for us, but I would certainly be willing to recess and wait until we can type something up and hand it to you tonight. I don't care about that, you know, we're all on board with this. It's certainly going to be a very cheap alternative to working on the current jail or even considering building a new jail. I don't ever want to see a new jail built here.
Cam, that was something you could do if we recess, or do you need more time?
I can write a resolution.
Okay.
Move recess.
Why don't we recess until, let's recess until quarter after.
Okay,
Is that enough time?
Should be.
I'll maybe we take a
Do you have a template?
25-minute recess.
You know.
Okay, 25-minute recess for a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. We're recessed.
Debbie.
Where's Shirley?
She had to leave, she had, like emergency in the field.
Okay.
Farm.
All right, let's call this meeting back to order. The resolution's been drawn up. It's resolution number 2018-R-4. The resolution states that there's authorizing the purchase of 307 Central Avenue, Connersville, Indiana, using funds from the Community Transition Program with the CTP. Whereas by using CTP funds, the building will be used for housing female jail inmates, female work release offenders, and related community corrections functions. Now therefore be it resolved by Fayette County Council that the Commissioners on behalf of Fayette County are authorized to make the necessary assurances and certifications and be empowered to enter into an agreement with Ed Connect to purchase said building. That Fayette County Council will reimburse the county community transition program if it is determined that said building is not appropriate for community corrections functions. Certificate. The undersigned duly qualified and acting members of the Fayette County Council certifies that the foregoing is a true and correct copy of a resolution adopted at a legally convened meeting of the Fayette County Council held on October 16, 2018.
On behalf of the Fayette County Commissioners, I thank you very much.
Welcome, we haven't approved it yet.
You haven't approved it?
So do we need to make a motion we approve?
Yes,
I didn't, I'm
Leota, I think the language of this resolution goes as far as necessary in every direction to obligate the county council in what we've discussed earlier in the meeting. It states here clearly that we are obligated to reimburse community corrections should directions change for the use of that building.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with this?
Yes, that takes care of the. Problem with
No.
Commissioner Naylor had.
Dale, a specific amount need to be mentioned in there. In case the terms of sale would change between now and closing.
That's a good question, John. The specific dollar amount is not in here, but the purchase price is certainly recorded in other documents.
Yes.
But actually, their letter said they would pay associated closing costs, which we do not know what those
Yeah.
would be.
That's true.
So it could be
Yeah.
good leaving it slightly open.
Well,
Motion to approve.
Second.
we have to have Shirley here.
I'm sorry.
Shirley has to be here, it has to be unanimous. She didn't tell me she was leaving.
Just message.
She's on her way back.
Is she?
Yes.
So
Recess.
we can recess until she gets back.
So moved.
She had an emergency
Well,
in the field.
meeting is recessed.
Here, Shirley.
Call this meeting back in session. Okay, we have all of our council members here to vote. Councilman Weiss, would you like to read the
Am I the
resolution?
only one signing this?
That's just a read.
Would you like me to read the resolution again?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Would you like me to read the resolution?
You want to read it aloud, or do you want to let me read it?
It's up to you.
First, I'd like to apologize to the council. I had no clue. I thought I made myself pretty clear that I was very much in favor of proceeding. Housing female jail inmates, comma, female,
It's a typo.
so strike that.
Strike the one female out. Careful how I say that.
So yes, I approve. Do
We
I?
haven't made a motion
Okay,
yet.
all right.
We're waiting for you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve resolution number 2018-R-4. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote, and we'll sign this one that I have in my hand. I'll send it down for your signatures.
Okay, Councilman Jackson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Riker Payton,
Yes.
Councilwoman Wise,
Yes or no?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dunn,
Yes.
Councilman Brockman,
Yes.
Councilman Strong,
Yes.
Councilman Winter.
Yes.
Okay. So it passes by unanimous vote.
Mr. President, is there any further business before the board?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn as soon as we get the signatures.
Mr. President, did we read this out loud so the public knows what we're?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Just we've got a motion in a second. We're ready to vote whenever you're done.
Do the secondary female.
Was there anything that needed to be discussed about the budget?
Just strike the second one.
It's not
And the
really-
comma.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Second, okay. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have, motion adjourned. Thank you for sure.